The rain had started without warning that afternoon. Thick, dark clouds gathered over the small town, and within minutes the streets were soaked. People rushed for cover, closing their umbrellas against the wind that seemed to come from all directions. Water streamed down the sides of the road, and the sound of thunder rolled across the sky. At the edge of town, a young man named Arjun was packing up his tools at his father's old garage. It wasn't much, just a tin-roofed shed with 2 small work bays, a bench full of wrenches, and a wall stained with years of grease and oil. But it was their life. His father had built it from nothing after years of hard work, and now Arjun helped him run it, fixing motorbikes and small cars for the local people. The rain hit harder, drumming on the metal roof like 1,000 little hammers. Arjun sighed and started to roll down the shutter when he noticed something across the road. Through the curtain of rain, he saw a white SUV pulled over, its hazard lights blinking. Steam rose from under the hood, curling into the air. Arjun grabbed his raincoat and hurried out, splashing through puddles. When he got closer, he saw a woman sitting inside, tapping on her phone, looking worried. The wipers moved back and forth, but the rain was coming down so fast that they could hardly keep the windshield clear. Arjun knocked gently on the window. The woman jumped a little before rolling it down halfway. "Ma'am, your car seems to be overheating," he said, raising his voice to be heard over the rain. "Do you need help?" She looked at him for a moment, uncertain. Her hair was tied neatly, though a few strands stuck to her face. She wore a formal jacket, now spotted with raindrops where she'd tried to check the engine earlier. "I was on my way to an important meeting," she said, her voice calm but strained. The engine light came on and then it just stopped. "I tried calling roadside help, but no one's picking up." Arjun gave a small, reassuring smile. "Don't worry, I can take a quick look. I work at the garage right over there." She hesitated for a second, then nodded. "Please, if you can help. I'm already late." Arjun lifted the hood carefully, and a puff of steam hit his face. The smell of burnt coolant filled the air. He took a step back and waved some of the steam away. The rain poured into the open engine, mixing with the heat, creating small bursts of vapor. He leaned in, checking the hoses, then the radiator cap. "You drove through this rain for long?" he asked. "About 40 minutes, she replied, watching him anxiously. "The fan belt's loose," he muttered. "And the coolant's leaking a bit. I can patch it enough to get you going, but you'll need a proper fix soon." Without waiting for her reply, Arjun ran back to the garage, grabbed his small toolbox, and returned. His clothes were soaked through, but he didn't seem to care. Kneeling by the car, he started working, his fingers moving quickly despite the cold water running down his hands. The woman stood under her umbrella, watching him. He was young, maybe 22, 23, but there was a calm focus in the way he worked, as if he'd done this 100 times before. He didn't complain about the rain or ask for money first like some roadside mechanics might. He just worked quietly, carefully, like it was the most natural thing in the world. The rain kept falling, soaking his hair and clothes. His hands were covered in grease, but his face showed only determination. Once or twice the woman offered to hold the umbrella for him, but he shook his head. "It's okay," he said with a grin. "The car needs it more than me right now." After about 20 minutes, Arjun tightened the last bolt and stood up, wiping his hands on a rag. "Try starting it now," he said. She got into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine coughed, then roared to life. The dashboard lights came on normally. A relieved smile spread across her face. "It's working," she said, almost laughing. Arjun nodded, the corners of his mouth lifting. "I just adjusted the belt and sealed the leak temporarily. You should be able to reach your meeting, but get it checked properly later, okay?" She stepped out and closed her umbrella halfway. "Thank you so much. You really saved me." "It's nothing," he replied. "Just doing what I know." She reached into her bag and pulled out her wallet. "Please, take this," she said, offering some cash. "You worked in the rain." "It's the least I can do." Arjun shook his head firmly. "No, ma'am. It's all right. You were in trouble, that's all that mattered. Keep it." She looked surprised. "But you spent so much time and effort." He smiled shyly. "It's okay. My father always says if someone's stranded, you help first and talk later. Money can come any time, but a person's trust is worth more." For a moment she just stood there speechless. The rain had slowed to a drizzle now, the air cooler and quieter. She watched him pick up his tools and wipe his face with his sleeve, still smiling as if he hadn't just worked through a storm. "May I at least know your name?" she asked. "Arjun," he said. adjusting his wet jacket. "We have a small garage here. You can bring your car any time if there's a problem." She nodded slowly, repeating his name as if to remember it. "Thank you, Arjun. You don't know how much this means to me." He just smiled again and waved as she drove off, the SUV splashing through puddles as it disappeared down the road. Arjun stood there for a while, watching until the car was out of sight. Then he turned and walked back to the garage, his boots making soft squelching sounds in the mud. Inside, his father looked up from his chair. "You were out there in this rain?" his father asked, his voice rough but caring. "Someone's car broke down," Arjun said simply. "She needed help." His father gave a small nod of approval. "You did right, son. That's how we built this place, by helping people first." Arjun smiled, rubbing his hands together to warm them. He poured himself a cup of tea from the old kettle sitting on the counter. The steam rose gently, mixing with the faint scent of oil and rubber that always lingered in the garage. Outside, the rain began to fade into a light drizzle. The streets glistened under the dull evening light, and the puddles reflected the neon signs from nearby shops. It was peaceful again, the kind of calm that always came after a storm. He sat down on a stool, sipping his tea slowly. He didn't think much about the woman or the fancy car. To him, it was just another day, another repair, another act of help. But somewhere deep down, a quiet thought crossed his mind. She had seemed different, not just because she drove an expensive car or spoke politely, but because she had looked at him with genuine gratitude, not pity. Most people saw him as just another small-town mechanic, someone who fixed their cars and disappeared. But she had looked him in the eye, thanked him like an equal. That small moment stayed with him, even as he brushed it off. Later that evening, when his father closed up the garage, Arjun stepped outside and looked at the sky. The clouds had cleared, revealing a faint orange glow on the horizon where the sun was setting. The air smelled fresh, washed clean by the rain. He thought again of the woman in the SUV, wondering if she'd reached her meeting on time, if her car would hold up till she got to the city. He hoped so. He didn't know her name, and he didn't expect to see her again. But somehow he couldn't forget her calm voice and the way she had smiled when the engine started. Back at home, his mother scolded him gently for getting drenched. He laughed it off, saying it was nothing, and helped her serve dinner. His father talked about the day's work, the customers who hadn't paid yet, and the parts they still needed to buy. It was the same as every evening, simple, humble, but peaceful. That night, lying on his small bed, Arjun listened to the faint dripping of rain outside the window. His hands were sore from the work, and his back ached slightly, but he felt strangely content. He didn't know it yet, but that rainy afternoon had set something in motion. A small act of kindness, done without any thought of reward, had quietly begun a chain of events that would one day change both his and that woman's life in ways he couldn't imagine. For now, though he just closed his eyes and let the sound of the rain carry him to sleep, unaware that destiny had already written the next chapter. The next morning, the sun came out bright and strong, as if the storm from the previous day had never happened. The roads were still damp and the air smelled fresh, filled with the scent of wet earth. Arjun opened the garage early as usual. His father was still at breakfast, so he swept the floor, arranged the tools, and checked on a motorbike that had been waiting for a part delivery. It was just another day for him. People came and went, asking for quick fixes and tire checks. A delivery truck driver stopped by to fill air in his tires, and an old man brought his scooter for servicing. The garage was small and noisy, but it was full of life, people chatting, laughing, and the constant sound of metal and engines. By noon, Arjun's clothes were already marked with grease and his hands were dark with oil stains. He didn't mind. It was part of his life. What mattered to him was doing things right, just as his father had taught him. Around that time, he thought briefly about the woman from yesterday. He hoped her car had made it to wherever she was going. Maybe she had reached her meeting on time. Maybe she had forgotten all about the small-town mechanic who fixed her car in the rain. He smiled at the thought and went back to work. Later that afternoon, as the day grew quieter, Arjun sat with his father for lunch. They shared a simple meal: rice, lentils, and vegetables his mother had sent from home. His father spoke in his usual steady tone. "You worked well yesterday," he said between bites. "Helping someone in that kind of weather. Not everyone would do that," Arjun shrugged. It just felt right, Baba. She was alone out there and it was pouring. What else could I do? His father gave him a small nod. Good work never goes unnoticed, son, even if it seems small. Arjun smiled but didn't think much of it. To him, it was just an ordinary act. 3 days passed. Life went on as usual. Then one quiet morning, something unexpected happened. A shiny white SUV pulled up outside the garage. Arjun recognized it instantly. It was the same car from the rainy day. He straightened up quickly, wiping his hands on a cloth. His father looked up from the workbench, puzzled. The car door opened and the same woman stepped out. This time she wasn't in a hurry or stressed. She looked calm, dressed neatly in a light blue shirt and black trousers. Her hair was tied back and she carried a small handbag. She smiled as she saw Arjun. "Hello," she said. "I don't know if you remember me." Arjun smiled shyly. "Of course, ma'am. The rain, the car. I remember." His father came forward, curious. The woman introduced herself politely and thanked Arjun again for his help. "That day I was rushing to an investor meeting," she explained. "If you hadn't helped me, I would have missed it. Because of you, I made it just in time." "That's good to hear," Arjun said, feeling genuinely happy. "I'm glad the car made it." She smiled and nodded. "It did, but it needed a lot of repairs afterward. I took it to a workshop in the city. They said whoever fixed it on the roadside did a clever job." Arjun chuckled lightly, embarrassed. "I just tried to keep it running." His father listened quietly, clearly impressed by how politely the woman spoke. Then, to their surprise, she said, "I own a company in the city. We build technology for vehicle diagnostics, systems that help mechanics find engine problems faster. I came back because I couldn't stop thinking about how you worked that day. You had no equipment, no fancy tools, but your understanding was sharp. You have a gift, Arjun." Arjun blinked, unsure what to say. "A gift?" "Yes," she said, her tone firm but kind. "You see, most people can fix things, but not everyone has the patience and honesty you showed. You worked in the rain without expecting anything. That kind of spirit is rare." Arjun didn't know how to react. He looked down, his heart racing. Compliments weren't something he was used to hearing. His father asked politely, "So, madam, what brings you here today?" She turned to him with a warm smile. "I have a proposal. My company is training new technicians to use modern diagnostic tools. We're looking for skilled mechanics who can learn quickly and handle real-world situations. I want Arjun to join our training program." Arjun's father looked surprised. "Training? In the city?" "Yes," she replied. "It's a 3-month program. We teach practical and technical skills, then offer a full-time job for those who do well. The company covers the training costs." Arjun's heart skipped a beat. He had never imagined something like this. Working in a company learning modern technology, it sounded like a dream. But he hesitated. "Ma'am, I'm just a mechanic from a small town. I've never worked with computers or big machines. I don't think I'll fit in." She shook her head gently. "That's exactly why I want you. Skill and honesty matter more than degrees. You already have the foundation. We'll teach you the rest." His father looked at Arjun, then at her. "It's a kind offer," he said slowly. "But we can't afford to send him to the city. We have work here and he helps me with the garage." She smiled kindly. "Don't worry about expenses. I'll take care of his stay and training costs. It's an opportunity, not a burden." For a moment there was silence. The sound of a passing motorbike filled the air. Arjun stood still, his heart full of mixed emotions, excitement, fear, and disbelief. He glanced at his father, unsure what to say. His father looked thoughtful. After a long pause, he sighed softly. "If this is truly what you want, Arjun, go for it. You've worked hard all these years. Maybe it's time you see a bigger world." Arjun nodded slowly, his throat tight. "Thank you, Baba." The woman smiled, sensing his hesitation melting away. "Good. I'll send you the details by tomorrow. The training starts next week. I'll expect you in the city by then." She handed him her card before leaving. Arjun stared at it as if it were something precious. After she left, he stood there quietly, still trying to believe what had just happened. His father placed a hand on his shoulder. "You see, son? Good work never goes unnoticed. You earned this." That night, Arjun could hardly sleep. He kept thinking about the new world waiting for him. The machines, the learning, the possibilities. But at the same time, he worried about leaving his father alone with the garage. His father, however, seemed peaceful about it. "I'll manage," he said the next morning. "Just promise me one thing. Never forget where you came from." Arjun promised, and a week later he boarded a bus to the city. It was the first time he had traveled that far from home. The city lights, the tall buildings, the constant noise, all of it felt overwhelming but exciting. When he reached the company's training center, he was welcomed by the staff. The woman, Ria, as he now knew her name, greeted him warmly and introduced him to the instructors. The next few days were full of learning. He was shown how diagnostic machines worked, how to read data on screens, and how technology could find problems in cars that even experienced mechanics might miss. It was like a whole new world opening in front of him. At first, it wasn't easy. He struggled with the computers and the technical terms, but he never gave up. He stayed late after every session, practicing and asking questions. His patience and determination caught everyone's attention. Ria noticed it too. One evening, she found him still in the workshop studying engine diagrams while everyone else had gone home. She smiled and said softly, "You remind me of myself when I started. I had nothing but curiosity and determination." "Keep that alive, Arjun." He nodded, humbled. "I just don't want to waste this chance." "You won't," she said. "You earned it the day you helped a stranger without expecting anything in return." Those words stayed with him. He didn't realize how much they would shape his journey ahead. As the days turned into weeks, Arjun began to shine. His ideas impressed the instructors, and his natural talent with engines made him stand out. The once quiet, small-town mechanic was becoming someone new, someone confident, capable, and full of hope. But deep down, he remained the same humble person who once fixed a car in the pouring rain. He never forgot where it all began or the simple garage that taught him everything he knew. Little did he know, this was only the beginning of a much bigger story, one that would change both his and Ria's life forever. Days turned into weeks, and weeks slowly turned into months. Arjun had settled into the city's rhythm. Life there was fast, noisy, and full of energy. Every day he woke up before sunrise, took the crowded bus to the company's training center, and spent hours learning about new machines, car engines, and computer software. It wasn't easy at first, but he had learned to adapt. He remembered how confused he had been during the first few days, trying to understand the digital systems that detected engine problems, but his curiosity never faded. He stayed back late every evening, sometimes until the cleaning staff came in. He'd ask questions, take notes, and then go back to his small rented room, reading until his eyes felt heavy. His instructors soon noticed his dedication. They often said, "That boy from the small-town garage, he learns faster than anyone else." Even Ria, the woman who had brought him here, kept an eye on his progress. She didn't treat him like an employee or a trainee. Instead, she spoke to him like a mentor, guiding him, motivating him, and often reminding him not to lose the simplicity that made him stand out. One evening, when everyone else had left, Ria found Arjun still inside the workshop. He was testing a new diagnostic device on a car engine. Sweat rolled down his forehead, but his eyes were fixed on the screen. "You're still here?" she asked, stepping closer. Arjun looked up, surprised. "I was just checking something, ma'am. The readings weren't matching earlier." She smiled faintly. "You could have done that tomorrow." "I know," he said with a shy grin. "But tomorrow there will be new work. I just wanted to understand this properly." Ria looked at him thoughtfully. "You're different, Arjun. Most people come here just for the job. You actually care about the work." He laughed softly. "I don't know any other way to do it," she nodded. "That's exactly what will take you far." That night, as Arjun walked back to his small room, her words echoed in his mind. It wasn't pride he felt, it was gratitude. He thought about how one small act in the rain had brought him here, and how much his life had changed since then. After 3 months of training, the program came to an end. There was a small ceremony where all the trainees were given certificates. Out of everyone, Arjun received special recognition for outstanding practical skills and dedication. Ria handed him the certificate herself, smiling with pride. "You've done exceptionally well," she told him. "If you'd like, I want you to stay on and work with our main team. We're developing new systems for local garages. You'll fit right in." Arjun was stunned. He could hardly believe it. "You mean, you want me to work here permanently?" "Yes," she said with a firm smile. "You've earned it." He thanked her sincerely, feeling both nervous and excited. A week later, Arjun began working full-time in the company's research and development unit. His main task was to test how the new diagnostic systems worked on real cars. The engineers valued his hands-on experience, while Arjun learned from their technical expertise. Together, they made a strong team. Months passed and his reputation in the company grew. He became known as the person who could spot engine issues by ear or by instinct, even before the computer did. People respected him, and Ria often brought him along for meetings with clients. But even with success, Arjun never changed. He still called his parents every night, telling them about his day. His father's voice always carried pride and warmth. "You're doing good, son," he would say. "But remember, stay humble. That's what makes you strong." One day, Ria asked Arjun to accompany her to a nearby town where they were launching a new vehicle testing center. It was a small event, attended by local mechanics and entrepreneurs. As they reached the venue, Arjun noticed how similar the town felt to his own. Dusty roads, small shops, and hard-working people trying to make a living. During the event, Ria gave a short speech about empowering local mechanics with modern tools. When it was over, she turned to Arjun and said, "You should speak too." Arjun looked startled. "Me? What would I say?" "Tell them your story," she said gently. "You were one of them not too long ago. They'll believe in you." Arjun hesitated for a moment, but then stepped forward. He spoke from the heart, about growing up in a small garage, learning from his father, fixing cars with simple tools, and how one rainy day changed everything. He ended by saying, "We may not have all the fancy machines, but if we work with honesty and passion, the world notices." "I'm living proof of that." The audience clapped warmly. Some of the local mechanics came up afterward to shake his hand. That day, Ria saw something in Arjun: leadership. Not the kind that comes from power or money, but from humility and sincerity. On the way back, she said, "You have a gift, Arjun. You can inspire people without trying." He smiled softly. "I just spoke the truth, ma'am. Nothing else." As months went by, Arjun's bond with Ria grew stronger, not in a romantic way, but as two people who deeply respected each other. She had given him a chance when no one else did, and he, in turn, helped her company grow faster with his hard work and fresh ideas. He came up with small but smart suggestions, like improving the software interface so mechanics in rural areas could use it more easily. His ideas made a real difference. Soon, Ria's company started getting attention from investors and the media. Despite all this progress, Arjun remained grounded. He still preferred simple clothes, traveled by bus, and spent weekends visiting his parents. Every time he went home, his father would proudly tell everyone, "My boy works with big machines now, but he still eats his mother's food like before." One evening, Ria called Arjun into her office. She seemed thoughtful. "I've been thinking," she said. "You've learned so much here, and you understand both the old ways and the new. What if we start a new project, something that helps mechanics from small towns upgrade their skills?" "You could lead it." Arjun was surprised. "Me lead a project?" "Yes," she said with a smile. "Who else could do it better?" He thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. "If it can help people like my father and others from our towns, I'll do it." Over the next few weeks, Arjun and Ria worked closely to design a training program that combined practical garage experience with modern diagnostic training. The plan was to travel to different towns and offer free workshops. The idea quickly gained attention. Mechanics from small towns were eager to learn. Ria handled the business side, while Arjun managed the technical part. Together, they made a strong team, balancing vision with practicality. At their first workshop, Arjun stood before a group of mechanics who looked at him with curiosity and respect. He began by saying, "I'm not a teacher or an engineer. I'm one of you. I've stood under cars covered in grease wondering how to fix things. But I've learned something important. Knowledge grows when you share it." The room was silent for a moment, then everyone started to clap. Many of them came forward later to thank him. That day, Arjun realized something profound. He wasn't just fixing cars anymore, he was fixing lives, including his own. Ria watched him from a distance, smiling. She felt proud of what he had become. What had started as a random meeting in the rain had turned into something far greater than either of them had imagined. That night, as they packed up their equipment, Ria said quietly, "You know, Arjun, I believe in fate. Some people come into our lives for a reason. You were meant to stop on that road that day. He smiled. Maybe we were both meant to stop there. They both laughed softly, the kind of laugh that comes from deep understanding. The journey that began with a broken car had turned into a partnership built on trust and respect. But neither of them knew that this was only the beginning of a much bigger change, one that would soon touch many more lives. The months that followed were some of the busiest and most rewarding days of Arjun's life. The small training project that he and Ria had started began to grow faster than they had imagined. Mechanics from nearby towns, villages, and even distant districts started coming to their workshops. Word spread that a new kind of training had begun, one that respected the old skills of local workers, but also taught them modern tools. Arjun became the heart of it. His way of teaching was not formal or complicated. He spoke in simple words that everyone could understand. He didn't stand above anyone. He stood with them, often sitting on the floor beside the engines, showing them how to use the new diagnostic devices. People liked him because he was real. He had lived their life, faced the same struggles, and now he was showing them a way forward. Every weekend, he and Ria would travel to different towns. They'd carry laptops, diagnostic tools, and printed manuals in the back of their car. Some workshops were held in schools, some under open sheds, and sometimes even in old garages where the smell of oil and petrol hung in the air. But no matter where they went, one thing was always the same: the faces of people eager to learn. Ria watched Arjun during these sessions and often felt proud. He spoke with confidence now, yet his voice was still humble. She had seen many people change after success, but Arjun stayed grounded, just as he was when she first met him. One day, after a long training session in a nearby town, they sat outside a small roadside tea stall. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange. Ria took a sip of her tea and smiled. "Do you realize how far you've come?" she asked. Arjun looked out at the road, watching the cars pass. "Sometimes I think about it," he said softly. "It feels like a dream. A few years ago, I was fixing bikes in my father's old garage. Now I'm helping others learn things I didn't even know existed back then." "You worked for it," she said. "You earned every bit of it," he smiled. "Still, it all started because of one broken car in the rain." Ria laughed lightly. Maybe the rain was meant to happen that day. They both fell silent, watching the light fade. Moments like this reminded them why they started, the purpose behind their work. As their program grew, big companies started to take notice. They offered support, tools, and sponsorships. The training centers that started in small towns slowly expanded into cities. Ria and Arjun began receiving invitations to speak at conferences about skill development and innovation. But even with all the recognition, Arjun always insisted that they keep their focus on the people who needed it most, the small-town mechanics who rarely got opportunities. One evening, Arjun returned to his home village after a long time. The garage where he had grown up was still there, though older and quieter now. His father sat outside reading a newspaper. When he saw Arjun walking toward him, his face lit up with pride. "Back from the big world?" his father teased. Arjun smiled and touched his father's feet respectfully. "Always come back to where it began, Baba." His father patted his back. "I hear people talking about your training programs. Even the district officer mentioned your name. You've made us proud." "It's all because of what you taught me," Arjun said sincerely. "You showed me how to work hard and never cheat anyone." His father chuckled. "I just taught you how to fix engines, not how to run the world." Arjun laughed too, but his heart was full. Later that night, he sat outside under the stars listening to the crickets. He could hear the soft hum of the old town in the background, the same sounds he grew up with. It felt peaceful, but somewhere inside he knew there was still more to do. The next morning he spoke to Ria on the phone. "I've been thinking," he said. "What if we build something permanent here? A training center in my hometown. There are so many young people who want to learn but can't travel far." Ria liked the idea immediately. "Yes," she said. "A permanent center could train hundreds every year. It could also keep the memory of where this journey started." They began planning right away. Over the next few months, with the help of local officials and donations from companies, the construction started. The building wasn't fancy. It was a simple, clean space with a few classrooms, a workshop area, and an open courtyard. But to Arjun, it felt like a dream turning real. When the center was ready, They decided to name it Udan, meaning flight. Ria said it was the perfect name because it symbolized giving wings to those who never thought they could fly. The inauguration day arrived and people from all around came to attend. Arjun's parents sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Reporters covered the event, and students from the nearby town stood excitedly with notebooks in hand. Ria gave a short speech about the journey that started with a rainy day and how a single act of kindness could create ripples of change. Then she invited Arjun to speak. He walked up to the stage, looking around at all the faces, hopeful, curious, determined. He took a deep breath and began. "When I was young," he said, "I used to think success meant having money or a big garage. But now I understand that real success is when you can lift others along the way. I was lucky that someone saw something in me when I didn't see it in myself. This center is for all of you to learn, to grow, and to believe that you can do something great, no matter where you come from." The crowd broke into applause. His parents wiped their eyes with pride. Ria stood nearby, smiling warmly. After the ceremony, Arjun walked through the workshop area where new students had already begun exploring the tools. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He wasn't just repairing cars anymore, he was repairing lives, helping people fix their future. That evening, as the crowd dispersed, Ria found him standing quietly near the entrance, looking at the building. "You did it," she said softly. He turned to her and shook his head. "We did it," she smiled. "You know, sometimes I think fate works like a mechanic too. It takes broken pieces and puts them together in ways we can't see." Arjun laughed lightly. "Maybe that's true. Maybe we're all just engines. Some just need a little repair to start again." The following weeks were full of joy. The training center began running smoothly. Young men and women came in eager to learn. Some were nervous at first, but Arjun's calm teaching style made everyone comfortable. He treated each student like a younger brother or sister, always encouraging them to try, to ask questions, and to never give up. Ria visited often, checking the progress and offering guidance. She and Arjun would spend long evenings discussing new ideas for expanding the program. They dreamed of opening more centers across the country someday. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Ria looked at the group of students practicing on an old engine. She turned to Arjun and said, "Do you ever think about how one small moment can change everything?" He nodded slowly. "Every day. If I hadn't stopped that day in the rain, I'd still be here fixing cars. I'd never have met you, never learned all this." "Maybe," she said. "But I think your kindness would have found its way out somehow. That's who you are." Her words stayed with him. Months later, a well-known magazine featured their story with the title, "From a Broken Car to Building Futures." It talked about how a mechanic's son and a businesswoman built something that gave hope to hundreds of people. Arjun didn't care much about fame, but seeing his father hold that magazine proudly made it all worthwhile. His mother framed the article and hung it on the wall of their small home. Every visitor who came by would be shown the story. But for Arjun, the real reward was watching his students succeed, seeing them get jobs, open their own workshops, and support their families. That was what made him happiest. He often told them, "I'm not a hero or a genius. I'm just someone who didn't stop trying. You can do the same." And every time he said it, he truly meant it. That night, as he walked around the quiet training center, he looked at the sign that read, "Udan." The moonlight fell softly on the letters. He smiled to himself. The journey that started with rain and a broken engine had turned into something much bigger, a movement, a message, a reminder that one act of kindness could create a lifetime of change. He didn't know what the next chapter would bring, but he knew one thing for sure: he was ready for it. Years passed, and the world around Arjun and Ria changed in many ways. The small training program that began with a handful of students had now turned into a network of learning centers, spread across several regions. The name Udan had become known as a symbol of hope and opportunity. For many young people from small towns, it was more than a training institute. It was a doorway to a better life. Arjun had grown from being a quiet mechanic into a respected mentor. He still preferred wearing simple clothes, still carried a small notebook in his pocket, and still smiled the same humble smile. But the spark in his eyes showed confidence now, a kind that came from years of hard work and purpose. Ria, too, had changed. She had learned to see business not just as numbers and growth charts, but as a way to create meaning. Her company continued to support Udan, But she also took a step back from her usual fast-paced life to focus on what truly mattered. One winter morning, Arjun stood outside the main center, watching a group of students working on an electric vehicle. The world was moving toward new technologies, and Udan had started introducing modern courses to prepare them for the future. He felt proud watching them, how carefully they worked, how confidently they handled the tools. A boy looked up and asked, "Sir, is it true you once fixed a car in the rain? And that's how all this started?" Arjun smiled. "Yes, it's true. I didn't know that day would change my life. But sometimes life gives you a test before it gives you a reward." The boy laughed. "Then maybe I should wait for a rainy day too." Arjun laughed with him and said, "You don't have to wait for the rain. Just do your best when the moment comes." That afternoon, Ria arrived at the center. She had been away for some time, traveling for business meetings and exploring new collaborations. When she stepped out of her car, Arjun greeted her warmly. "It's good to see you again," he said. "It feels like forever," she replied. "I miss this place." They walked around the classrooms, greeting students and trainers. Ria noticed how organized everything was. Arjun had made sure every detail was taken care of. The tools, the learning materials, even the motivational posters on the walls. One poster caught her eye. It said, "No work is small when done with a big heart." She looked at it for a moment and smiled. "That sounds like something you'd say," she told Arjun. He grinned. "Maybe I did." Later that evening, they sat on the rooftop of the building, watching the sunset. The orange glow fell softly over the training yard, where the last group of students was packing up. "It's hard to believe how far this has come," Ria said quietly. "It's not just us," Arjun replied. "It's everyone who believed in it. The students, the teachers, the workers, everyone added their piece to the puzzle." She nodded. "Do you ever think about what's next?" Arjun looked thoughtful. "I've been thinking about it lately. Maybe it's time we pass this to others, to new leaders who can carry it forward." "You mean you'll step away?" she asked, surprised. "Not completely," he said, "but maybe I should let others lead. There are so many bright young people here who can take Udan to the next level. I want to focus on something smaller again, something that connects me directly to the people." Ria looked at him for a moment. "You've always been like that," she said. "Never chasing fame, never running after success. Just doing what feels right," Arjun smiled. "Maybe that's what keeps me at peace." They sat in silence for a while, watching the sky grow darker. Somewhere in the distance, they could hear the soft hum of machines and laughter from the dormitory. The air felt calm, peaceful, like life itself had taken a deep breath. A few days later, Arjun called a meeting with his team. He announced his decision to step down from the daily management of Udan and hand over leadership to a group of young trainers who had been with them for years. At first, everyone was shocked. Some even tried to convince him to stay. But Arjun smiled and said, "This is not an ending. It's just the next step. The dream should not depend on one person. It should live through everyone who believes in it." Ria supported his decision, though it wasn't easy for her. She had worked with Arjun for so long that imagining Udan without his constant presence felt strange. But deep down, she knew he was right. A few months later, Arjun returned to his hometown again. The old streets were the same, though a little busier now. His father had retired, and his mother still kept the house warm and welcoming. He reopened his family's garage, not as a business this time, but as a community workshop. Anyone could come there to learn or fix their vehicle at a low cost. He called it Mitra Garage, meaning friend's workshop. He wanted it to be a place where people felt they belonged. Soon, children from the neighborhood started hanging around, watching him work. He taught them small things: how to use a wrench, how to check oil, how to understand an engine. It reminded him of his own childhood, and it made him smile. Meanwhile, Udan continued to grow under the new leadership. Ria often visited Arjun, updating him about their projects. She had also started a foundation to help women in small towns start businesses. One day, she arrived at his garage with some news. "We're opening 2 new centers," she said excitedly. "And we're going international. A company from another country wants to partner with us." Arjun's face lit up. "That's incredible. You've taken it further than I ever imagined." Ria shook her head. "No, we did this." "You planted the seed, Arjun. I just watered it," he smiled. "That's all teamwork is." They sat on a wooden bench outside the garage, sharing tea just like the old days. The sound of rain began to fall softly, a reminder of the day everything started. Ria looked up at the clouds and said with a laugh, "Looks like the rain followed us again." Arjun chuckled. "Maybe it's here to remind us where we began." They sat quietly for a while, listening to the rain hit the tin roof. Then Ria said softly, "You know, if someone told me years ago that fixing a car in the rain would change so many lives, I wouldn't have believed it." Arjun nodded. That's how life works. The smallest moments can create the biggest changes. As the rain continued, a few young kids ran into the garage, drenched but laughing. "Uncle, can we help today?" one of them asked eagerly. Arjun smiled and handed them a small box of tools. "Of course. But remember, handle them with care." Ria watched as he guided them, his voice calm and patient. She realized that even though he had stepped back from Udaan, he was still doing what he did best, teaching, inspiring, giving hope. Years later, people would often tell the story of how a poor mechanic's son once fixed a broken car in the rain and ended up changing thousands of lives. But to Arjun, it was never about fame or recognition. It was about doing the right thing at the right time and helping others rise along the way. One evening, long after the rain had stopped, Raya visited the small garage again. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow across the dusty ground. Arjun was sitting quietly, cleaning his tools. She said softly, "You've built something that will live on forever." He looked up and smiled. "Maybe, but more than that, I've learned something important. Kindness never fades. It travels from one person to another just like light." She nodded, her eyes glistening. "And you've passed that light to so many." He looked around the small garage, at the children learning, at the sound of laughter, and at the open road beyond. "It's their turn now," he said. As the sun disappeared behind the hills, the soft hum of evening filled the air. The story that began with a broken car had come full circle, not with an ending, but with a beginning for countless others. And somewhere in that quiet little town, the sound of an engine starting echoed again, a simple reminder that hope, like life, keeps moving forward.